Today we're going to make a lovely little safety pin brooch. Mine is made out of felt, but you could use another fabric if you wanted to. And I was rather pleased with this if you look at all my back stitching around the edge. So I'm not a perfectionist, as you all know if you've seen some of my videos, but I do like to sort of improve my practice, and I was very pleased with that back stitch. Anyway, you will need a big safety pin, and if you can't get one this big, you can use smaller ones, that's fine. Needles, threads, depending on your design. I use a needle threader as well, and some nice thick felt. I've got a wool mix here, and I'm just going to use quite a plain colour. I'm going to do a daisy this time, so I've done a sunflower there. I didn't use a pattern. You could, if you like using stick and stitch, you could stick something on here, or you could draw on the felt, but I do find felt is a little bit tricky to draw on. So you could iron on a design, or just go for it as I'm going to do today. We're going to do a daisy. So you need a rectangle of your base fabric. I am using felt so the edges aren't fraying. It's very easy to work with. And I've done it about 10 centimeters by 5 centimeters. I haven't measured it, but what you need to decide is how wide your safety pin is. So actually this is a tiny bit too wide. I'll trim that down. And how much you want it to hang down. That's quite a square sort of looking one. So I'm going to have to trim that slightly. There we go. There we go, now that fits perfectly. And it's going to hang down. So you need a good idea of what half the fabric size looks like before you start stitching. We're going to sew a very small design here on one side, and then you'll fold your piece over your safety pin, sew all the way around the outside, and then it'll all be covered up on the back. Really simple project. They're super quick to make. You could have quite a few different things for different days. Let's get started. So for my daisy, I'm going to do white lazy daisy petals, little yellow French knots in the centre, then probably just backstitch or whip backstitch stalk. So it is going to be quite a small daisy because this is quite a square piece rather than a rectangle piece, and perhaps should have done it a little longer, but we'll see how we go. And I might even do a leaf. I found some nice variegated, I think you say, thread. So it goes from light green to dark green, so I think that might be quite nice to use. It's a little bit tricky to do French knots without a hoop, but I will show you a few. So I used 2 strands of yellow for my French knots. I'm now going to use 3 strands of white for the petals because I want them to be a bit thicker. I don't want them to be lost in the sort of background. I may, depending on how they turn out, I might put a straight stitch in the middle of the petals as well. You do want to leave a gap at the top where you will attach it to the safety pin. I do want to fit quite a few on. I want it to look like it has lots of petals. So I might overlap some. There we go, that is my daisy. I think because I want a little bit more colour on the petals, I'm going to do a line, straight stitch line in each of the lazy daisies, which will give a sort of denser look to the petals. We are going to do a tiny little stem, and I think because it's central, a little leaf on each side. If the flower head had ended up slightly to one side, I would have done a bowed stem and just one leaf probably. But we are going to do 2 leaves, I think. Got to always remember to leave your gap around the edge to sew your front and back together. You could do it in 2 separate pieces. That is absolutely fine. I just find it easier doing it this way, and then it just folds over your safety pin. You are now ready to sew your mini masterpiece onto your safety pin. Now on this one I chose a yellow that sort of almost blends in, and I just did a running stitch, which is quite a plain stitch, but you could do a more decorative stitch. You could do a blanket stitch, but remember with blanket stitch it does come into your design more than just a running stitch or a back stitch, and you could use a more interesting colour. So I do think this one looks a little bit plain, so I am going to use the nice green that I've been using, and hopefully get some different colours going on around the edge. Now I advise you to start with the top row of stitches right next to your safety pin and go as close as you can and keep it quite tight. So again, I'm going to do back stitch. So come up in your top layer of fabric only, so your knot is on the inside. And you are going to leave a little border. You could leave a larger one, so you've got more of a decoration on the actual design. I have seen people put a little marker on their finger or their fingernail to sort of keep the stitches the same size, which is probably a really good idea. I am just going to take my time and hopefully I can do a reasonably good job. First line of stitching done, and at this point, because now you are set, I can tell that my front bit isn't quite straight and you can see a bit of the back bit showing through, so I'm just going to trim that off. Apart from that, it's okay. So I am going to sew the rest in back stitch. We've done our back stitch, as you can see. Just wanted to show you the last stitches. So on the back only, go through the back piece of fabric a couple of times, just with your stitches going over the last stitch, and then with your very last stitch, go into the back piece of fabric and come out sort of a little bit down. Make sure you've not picked up the front fabric, and then you can snip off. Oop. And that will just get lost in the back piece of fabric. There we go. And that is our finished daisy safety pin badge. So you could do any little motif you like, and they're just a really cute and easy project.